Part 2, Persuasive Speeches. As we've talked about in class before, persuasive public speaking goes a step further than informative speaking, where you're actually taking the information and you're persuading your audience to do something with that information. Persuasive public speaking is a deliberate attempt to either change or reinforce, build upon, attitudes, values, and beliefs. Now, we've talked about attitudes, values, and beliefs throughout the semester, but just as a recap for you, attitudes are the ways in which you feel about things. So it's not necessarily a personality trait, like she has an attitude. It is how you feel positively or negatively about something. Values are things that you deem to be good or bad. And then beliefs are things that you deem to be true or false. So your own unique set of attitudes, values, and beliefs, we know as part of audience analysis that we did at the beginning of the semester, everybody has these. Everybody has a set of them and nobody's are the same. When you are persuasive public speaking, you're trying to hone in on a certain set of attitudes, values, and beliefs and get people to either build upon them, reinforce them, or change them. When we are persuasive public speaking, we are doing a couple things. We are bringing up facts. We are using research to support the information that we are talking about. And then we are asking the audience to do something. And we do that by speaking on a question of fact. So something that we know is true and factual and has been confirmed. We speak on a question of value. So something that can add value to your life, or something that, as if it was gone, would be invaluable. So it would be a void in your life if you didn't have it. Or you're speaking on a question of policy. So there's a policy that exists in our world. You want to change it, or you want to confirm that it is correct, and you use that as what you build upon for your persuasive public speaking. When you do something along these lines, a question of fact, value, or policy, you are taking something that already exists, a fact in our life, a value that we have in our life, or a policy that currently exists, and we are building upon it. We are finding good research out there that supports this or shows the absence of it is actually a bad thing. And then we talk about and persuade through action, or through the call to action in our audience. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are doing a question of value in recycling, the second one on the screen in front of you. So you say things like, the value in recycling is, and then you give your fantastic research that you found. Or you do the opposite of that, where you talk about the absence of something like recycling actually reduces the value of your life, or the value of our environment, or the value of our planet. So you can use these things to either show the value in something or the lack of value in its absence. The same thing goes for the questions of fact and policy. So how do we do this? How do we persuade people? We do this through many different ways. First and foremost, and why we did research at the beginning of the semester, is that we go out and find evidence and facts that we can use to show our audience that we have research to support the information that we're giving you. If we are good critical listeners in an audience and someone tells us to go do something, our first questions in the audience should be why? Says who? Why is this a good thing, right? All of those things should come to mind. And when you're persuasive public speaking, that is the purpose of evidence and facts. Because we know our audience is going to question the information we're giving them, we want to make sure that we are supporting it with backup good research. We also appeal to reason. And the reason why we do this is because we know that for the most part, our audience in front of us is a reasonable person. So you want to make sure that you say things and request action of somebody that is absolutely reasonable. I'm asking you to throw your plastic water bottle into a recyclable bin. That's what I'm asking you. If you were to say, I'm asking you to build your own recyclable facility in your backyard, that's a little outside of reason, right? And we know that. So we know that we need to appeal to someone's reason, someone's logic, someone's emotion. Absolutely can have a lasting impact in persuasive public speaking. For any of those philosophy people out there, or if you remember from your intro to philosophy class, Aristotle had a formulation of appeals that were started in the fact that in life we have different appeals that you can kind of drill into. Mythos, ethos, and pathos, if you remember that from philosophy. And that is what that is. That's appealing to reason and appealing to logic and appealing to emotion. It is saying that if there are things that people are logical about, smart about, step by step, you can appeal to that. If somebody is a reasonable person and can understand basic requests in life, you can appeal to reason. If there's something that has emotional baggage in a way, or emotional kind of strength underneath of it, then you can appeal to that, because you will get somebody's core if you use logic, reason, or emotion. Number 5 actually is a good way to show you what not to do in persuasion, because you can actually persuade someone to do the opposite of what you're asking them to do, just based on the way in which you present information. So there's an entire list of fallacies listed on pages 361 to 362. But basically, fallacies are things that you say that don't make sense or are baseless with no research behind it. They kind of feel like childish statements in a way, but your audience can pretty quickly see through them. One of the most prevalent in public speaking is this either or fallacy, where you basically corner your audience into picking one or the other. And you say you're either, well, I think the book uses an example, you're either for prayer in school or you're an atheist. Now, if your persuasive public speech was why prayer in school is important, and you open up your speech with you're either for prayer in school or you're an atheist, that's an either or fallacy. You are going to divide your audience into 2 categories. One, and hopefully the larger of the group, which is the critical thinkers that say, I don't have to be in either category. Explain to me why one is more valuable than the other. Or the people that don't want to be put in a category and immediately back off. You're going to lose your audience if you do fallacies, use fallacies that they can easily pick up on. It's actually a manipulation tactic, fallacies. So you want to avoid them because you can easily pick up on them, and then you take away all your credibility as a public speaker. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is another way in which we can persuade our audience. Now, this is not a communications model. This is actually a theory that can be used widely in many different areas of education. I've heard business people use it. I've heard criminal justice folks use it, psychology, of course. But in public speaking, the reason why this is important is that we understand that everybody has building blocks to the ultimate goal of self-actualization. That is what this hierarchy of needs theory says. And you can see in front of you that the bottom of the pyramid are our basic physiological needs. Things like we have to be fed, we have to sleep, we have to be clothed, we have to feel comfortable, right? So once we have met our physiological needs, we're being fed, we're being sheltered, we have food to eat, then we go on to safety needs, which is our ability to feel safe around people. We don't have to look over our backs when we leave our front doors. We don't have to feel unsafe at certain places in our life. Once our safety needs are met, then we can move on to our social needs. That's the idea that we need to be loved by other people. We need to have a network of people that we consider to be our own. And then self-esteem needs builds upon that. That is our need to love ourselves. And then the final goal, if we have all the things below that, is self-actualization. In public speaking, we use this because if you have not had your safety needs met, then you probably are not thinking about self-esteem or self-actualization or social needs. If you are not being clothed or have food to eat, you probably aren't feeling about your safety needs or your social needs. This is important because we can actually hone in on different parts of this pyramid and build upon that. For example, gun control in elementary schools, right? That is a direct appeal to safety needs. We as a society have a desire and a drive to keep our children safe. So we know that people that do not feel safe when it comes to sending their kids off to school are not interested in hearing about social needs or self-esteem needs because they are hyper-focused on safety needs. So if you have something that is related to safety needs, as an example, you want to focus all of your energy on that part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You don't want to talk about why it's important to go out to dinner with your friends or why it's important to have something that makes you personally happy. Those things are important in life. Make no mistake about that. But in your persuasive speech, you are focused in on the area that is important on this chart, which is safety needs. So if that's helpful for you, that is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a way in which public speaking, they use that in public speaking to hone in on appeal. In persuasive public speaking, we are trying to do a couple things. We are trying to narrow the listener's options. So make sure that what you're saying is the way to do something, the way to act, the way to vote, the way to do whatever action you're asking of them. You want to support the information with facts, good research, good examples, good definitions. Use those appeals we just talked about. So appeal to emotion, appeal to logic, and appeal to reason. And then you want to give them the freedom to decide. And the reason why we do that is in contrast to the first one, which is narrow their options, but also don't make them feel like they're being forced into a decision, because you will lose your audience's ability to follow you if they feel like you're forcing them into something. Your speech, the way you build it, you want to kind of make it feel natural to them, that you are walking them through to the natural decision of whatever persuasion you're trying to get them to. When you try to force them to decide something, sometimes people will automatically say no just because they don't feel like they have the choice. Another motivational sequence that is very helpful in public speaking is called Monroe's motivational sequence. And that is the 5-step process where you get somebody to action. So you can see at the top, you draw attention to what you're looking for as far as your persuasive topic, and then you show them how to actually get there. You walk them through the steps. Now you can see this is 5 parts. So that's actually your 5 main points. If you choose to do motivational sequence, your main points would be drawing attention to it, showing the need for it. The satisfaction stage is showing them how people will get to the end. Visualization is showing them how to do it, and actions are the action steps. So let me show you what that looks like. Attention is directing your attention to the audience about this process. So that's number 1. Number 2 is showing them that there's a need for this action. Number 3 is actually the part in which you develop a solution and introduce it to your audience. The visualization, number 4, is actually showing them how their actions are going to end up benefiting them, or showing them that their lack of action is actually going to hurt them. And then number 5 is actually giving them the tools to do it. That's the part of the motivational sequence where you are showing them how to do this item, persuade them to do this item. So if that's helpful for you, just like Monroe's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just like that, Monroe's motivational sequence is the same idea, that you can hone in on these things and actually walk your audience through the steps. As a quick recap for you, just like we did with informative speaking, persuasive intros look very similar. Welcome your audience, some sort of attention getter that gets the attention of your audience, a credibility and relevance statement. Why are you credible and why is this information relevant? Preview your main points, and then link to your body. Your body will consist of good persuasive organizational patterns, topical, spatial, problem solution, or cause and effect. We get rid of chronological for these options because it's really hard to persuade somebody when you're just walking them through step by step on something. So topical, spatial, problem solution, and cause and effect. Then we have the conclusion, signal the end. So in conclusion, in summary, whatever you want to say to let people know that you are done introducing new information and you are about to wrap up your speech. Again, 5% of your speech is your conclusion, so a very small piece of it. Signal the end, summarize what you just said. So like your preview of main points, you summarize at the end, elicit a response, and then you specifically have a wow statement or a call to action. Those are things like, this is how you do this. This is who you call to change this bill, make it a law. This is how you go recycle. This is how you join a gym. This is how you change your habits on X, Y, and Z. That's the specific call to action that I will be listening for when I grade you, and your audience needs to hear so they can walk away with that action to be persuaded. As always, if you have questions at all, please let me know. Again, this was a recap of the last couple weeks when we talked about extemporaneous persuasive speaking, but I wanted to review it with you again as we are quickly approaching persuasive public speaking.